Before being forced to marry, the Apache pleaded, and the rancher rescued her on his horse. The sun was just beginning to rise over the dry land, painting the sky in soft orange and pale pink. The desert was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every sound feel louder than it really was. A young Apache woman stood near the edge of her community, her heart beating so fast it hurt. Her hands were shaking, not from the morning cold but from fear. Today was the day they would take her. She had known this day was coming for months. The elders had decided. Her family had agreed. The man chosen for her was older, powerful, and respected, but she felt nothing but dread when she thought of him. She had tried to speak once, quietly, carefully, but her words were brushed aside. This was tradition, they told her. This was duty. This was how things had always been, but she could not accept it. All night she had stayed awake, listening to the sounds of people sleeping, listening to her own thoughts grow louder and darker. She knew what would happen if she stayed. She also knew what would happen if she ran. Shame, anger, possibly worse. Still, as the first light touched the ground, she made her choice. She ran. Her feet hit the hard earth as she moved beyond the familiar paths, beyond the tents and homes, beyond the place that had once felt safe. Her breath came out in short gasps. Her long hair fell loose around her shoulders, brushing against her face as she pushed forward. She did not know exactly where she was going. She only knew she could not stop. The land stretched wide and open, empty except for rocks, dust, and low hills. The wind carried the smell of dry grass and distant animals. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow made her heart jump. She expected to hear shouting behind her at any moment. As she ran, memories filled her mind. Her mother's face, tired but kind. The laughter of children. Even the small joys she might never see again. Tears blurred her vision, but she did not slow down. Fear pushed her forward stronger than any sadness. After what felt like hours, though it was likely less, her legs began to ache. Her throat burned. She stumbled once and nearly fell. That was when she saw him, a man on a horse, riding alone across the open land. At first she thought she was imagining it. Outsiders rarely came this way, and when they did not ride so calmly, so quietly. But he was real. His horse moved at an easy pace, as if neither of them were in a hurry. The man wore simple clothes, worn from work and sun. He looked older than her, with a face shaped by years of hard living, but there was nothing threatening about him. She froze. Everything she had been taught warned her about strangers. She did not know his language well. She did not know his intentions. But behind her was a future she could not face, and in front of her was someone who might, just might, listen. She took a few careful steps forward. The man noticed her then. He pulled gently on the reins, and the horse slowed to a stop. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in confusion. He had not expected to see a young woman running alone across the desert at dawn. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came at first. Fear closed her throat. Then suddenly, everything spilled out at once. She spoke in broken English mixed with her own language. Her voice trembled. She pointed back toward the distant land she had come from. She shook her head again and again, tears streaming down her face. She did not explain everything clearly, but she did not need to. Her eyes said enough. "Please," she said, the word clear and sharp in the quiet morning. "Please help." The rancher felt something tighten in his chest. He had seen fear before. He had seen desperation. This was not a trick. This was not drama. This was real. He looked behind her, scanning the horizon. Nothing yet. But he knew how quickly that could change. "Slow down," he said gently, raising one hand. His voice was calm, steady, the kind of voice used to calming animals and lonely thoughts. "You're safe right now." He wasn't sure that was true, but he hoped it was enough to help her breathe. She tried to explain more. She spoke of being taken, of having no choice, of begging and not being heard. Her words were simple, sometimes unclear, but her meaning was impossible to miss. She did not want to go back. She could not go back. The rancher stayed silent as she spoke. His mind raced. Helping her would bring trouble, serious trouble. He lived alone on his ranch, miles from town. He had worked hard to stay out of other people's conflicts. He knew that taking her with him could bring anger from her community, questions from authorities, and danger he was not prepared for. He also knew that if he turned away, he would remember her face for the rest of his life. He thought of his wife, gone for years now, and the promise he had made to himself to live quietly to avoid pain. But the desert had a way of testing promises. He looked at her again. She was young, frightened, brave enough to run when she had nothing. That took courage. He sighed slowly. "Can you ride?" he asked. Her eyes widened. She nodded quickly. She had ridden horses before, though not like this, not under these circumstances. He reached down and held out his hand. For a moment she hesitated. Taking his hand meant crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. It meant there would be no easy return. She thought of her family one last time. Then she took his hand. He pulled her up onto the horse, settling her in front of him. She was shaking, and he adjusted the reins so the horse would move carefully. With one last look at the empty horizon, he turned the horse and urged it forward. They rode. The wind rushed past them as the horse picked up speed. The land rolled beneath them, endless and unforgiving. The woman held onto the saddle tightly, her heart pounding with fear and something else she could not name yet, hope maybe. Behind them, far in the distance, dust began to rise. She saw it first and pointed back, panic returning to her face. The rancher followed her gaze. His jaw tightened. He did not slow down. "We keep going," he said firmly. The sun climbed higher as they rode, the heat growing stronger. The woman's fear did not fade, but it changed. It became sharper, more focused. She was no longer just running away. She was running toward something unknown. As the horse carried them farther from everything she had known, she realized something important. No matter what happened next, she had made her own choice for the first time in her life. And there was no turning back now. The horse slowed only when the land ahead began to change. The open desert gave way to uneven ground, scattered with low bushes and rough stones. The rancher guided the horse carefully, watching every step. He did not want the animal to stumble with both of them riding. The woman's arms were tight around the saddle, her body stiff with fear and exhaustion. They had been riding for a long time. The sun was now high in the sky and the heat pressed down on them without mercy. Dust clung to their clothes and skin. The woman's throat felt dry and her lips were cracked. Still, she did not complain. She was afraid that if she spoke, the strength holding her together might break. The rancher noticed her breathing, shallow and uneven. He pulled the reins gently and brought the horse to a stop near a cluster of rocks that offered a little shade. "We need to rest," he said quietly. She looked around, fear flashing in her eyes. She turned her head, searching the land behind them. She did not see the dust anymore, but that did not mean it was gone. "They may come," she said softly. "I know," he replied. "But you won't make it if you fall off from being too tired." He helped her down from the horse. Her legs shook as soon as her feet touched the ground. She nearly collapsed, but he steadied her without hesitation. His touch was firm but respectful, and she was grateful for it. He gave her water from a worn metal bottle. She drank slowly at first, then more eagerly, as if her body suddenly remembered what it needed. When she handed the bottle back, her hands were still trembling. "Thank you," she said. He nodded and took a small drink himself. He did not have much water left, but he did not tell her that. They sat in silence for a few moments, listening to the wind move across the land. The quiet was heavy, filled with things neither of them said. The woman hugged her knees to her chest, trying to make herself smaller, as if that might protect her from what was coming. After a while, she spoke again. "I don't know what will happen now," she said. "I don't know where to go." The rancher looked out across the land, his eyes narrowed against the sun. "I have a ranch," he said. "It's not close to town, it's quiet. You can stay there for now." "For how long?" she asked. He did not answer right away. until we figure something out." That was not a promise of safety. It was not a promise of a future, but it was honest, and she appreciated that. They mounted the horse again and continued riding. As the hours passed, the woman's fear slowly changed. It did not disappear, but it settled deeper inside her, turning into a constant ache rather than sharp panic. She began to notice small things: the sound of the horse's breathing, the way the rancher guided it with calm confidence, the wide sky that seemed to stretch forever. She wondered what kind of man he was. He did not talk much. When he did, his words were simple and careful. He asked her name once and she gave it. He told her his own name in return. It felt strange exchanging names in the middle of nowhere, as if that simple act made their situation more real. As they rode, he told her a little about the ranch, about the land, the animals, the work. He did not speak of family. She did not ask. By late afternoon, they reached the edge of his property. It was not marked by fences or signs, just a change in the land that he seemed to recognize instinctively. A small house stood in the distance, weathered by years of sun and wind. Nearby, a few animals moved slowly, used to the quiet life. The woman felt a strange mix of relief and fear as they approached. This place was safe for now, but it was also completely unfamiliar. She was stepping into a life she did not understand. The rancher helped her down again and led the horse to a shaded area. He showed her inside the house. It was simple and clean, with worn furniture and signs of careful use. Nothing fancy, nothing extra, just what was needed. "You can rest here," he said, pointing to a small room. "I'll get some food." She sat on the bed, her body finally giving in to exhaustion. For a moment she thought she might cry, but the tears did not come. She felt empty instead. Later, they ate together in silence. The food was plain, but it tasted better than anything she remembered. Hunger had sharpened her senses, and safety, even temporary, made everything feel more intense. As evening fell, the rancher stepped outside to check the land. He scanned the horizon, his jaw tight. He knew they could not hide forever. People would ask questions. They always did. Inside, the woman lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Every sound made her tense. She expected shouting, footsteps, accusations. Instead, there was only the wind and the quiet creak of the house. She thought of her family again, of the faces she might never see. The pain of that loss settled in her chest, heavy and real. But alongside it was something new, a small, steady sense of control. For the first time, her life felt like it belonged to her, even if only a little. Outside, the rancher made a decision of his own. He knew the days ahead would not be easy. Helping her meant stepping into a conflict he had avoided all his life. But as he looked back at the house, at the light glowing softly through the window, he understood something clearly. Some choices could not be undone, and whatever came next, neither of them would face it the same way again. Morning arrived slowly at the ranch. The sky changed from deep blue to soft gray, then to pale gold. The woman woke before the sun fully rose. For a moment she did not remember where she was. The small room felt strange, unfamiliar. Then everything rushed back to her: the running, the horse, the fear, the man who had helped her. Her heart began to race. She sat up and listened. The house was quiet, too quiet. She wondered if he had changed his mind during the night. Maybe he had decided it was too dangerous to keep her here. Maybe he had already gone to bring her back. She stood and walked carefully to the door. When she opened it, she saw the rancher outside, moving slowly, feeding the animals. He looked tired but calm, as if this was just another morning. Relief washed over her so strongly that her knees felt weak. She stepped outside. The air was cool and fresh. Birds moved across the sky and the land stretched out in every direction. It was beautiful in a quiet, lonely way. She had never seen a place like this before. "Good morning," he said when he noticed her. "Good morning," she replied softly. He handed her a cup of water and some food. She thanked him and ate slowly, watching him work. He moved with confidence, like someone who knew exactly where he belonged. She wondered how long he had lived here alone. As the day went on, she tried to make herself useful. She offered to help with small tasks, cleaning, carrying things, anything to keep her mind busy. He did not stop her, but he did not give her heavy work either. It felt like he was careful not to overwhelm her. Still, no matter what she did, her thoughts kept returning to the same place. How long could this last? By the third day, the fear she had been holding back began to change. It was no longer sharp panic. It was something heavier, something slower. Guilt. At night, she lay awake thinking about her family, about her mother waking up to find her gone, about the anger and shame her choice might have caused. She wondered if they were worried about her safety or only about what others would say. One evening, she finally spoke. "I didn't want to bring trouble to you," she said quietly as they sat outside watching the sun sink into the land. He was silent for a long moment. "Trouble doesn't need an invitation," he said. "It finds people anyway." She looked down at her hands. "If they come, if they ask you to send me back." He did not answer right away. She waited, her chest tight. "I won't force you to do anything," he said at last. That was not the same as saying he would protect her forever, but it meant more than empty promises. Days passed. Then weeks. Life on the ranch followed a steady rhythm. Wake early, work until the sun grew strong, rest, work again, eat simple meals, sleep. The routine gave her comfort. For the first time, she knew what her day would look like before it began. She learned quickly how to care for animals, how to fix small things, how to move with purpose instead of fear. Slowly, her body grew stronger, her mind grew quieter, but the outside world did not forget. One afternoon, a stranger arrived on horseback. The woman saw him first and froze. Her heart pounded as old fear rushed back. She stood still, unsure whether to run or hide. The rancher noticed immediately. He told her to go inside. She did, but she stayed near the window listening. The stranger spoke politely at first. He asked questions about the land, about work, about whether the rancher had seen anyone unusual passing through. The rancher answered calmly, without giving away more than necessary. When the man finally left, the woman came back outside. "They're looking," she said. "Yes," he replied. That night neither of them slept much. Soon after, more people came. Not angry, not loud, but serious. They asked questions. They wanted explanations. The situation could no longer be ignored. The woman realized something important then. Hiding forever was not a solution. The rancher was risking his life, his land, his future for her. That was not fair. "I should speak," she said one evening. He looked at her carefully. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "I ran because I had no voice. If I stay silent now, nothing changes." When the time came, she stood in front of people who questioned her choices. Her hands shook, but her voice did not break. She did not accuse. She did not shout. She spoke only the truth. She explained that she had been afraid, that she had begged to choose her own path. That leaving was not about disrespect, but about survival. Some listened. Some did not. The rancher stood beside her the entire time. He did not speak much. He did not need to. His presence said enough. The forced plans were stopped, but nothing was simple after that. She could not return to her old life. Too much had changed. Too many lines had been crossed. That night she sat alone under the stars, feeling both free and lost. The rancher joined her quietly. "You don't owe me anything," he said, as if reading her thoughts. "I know," she replied, "but I won't forget what you did." He nodded. "Just make sure whatever you choose next, it's yours." She looked out across the land, the wide open space that no longer felt frightening. It felt possible. For the first time, she was not running away. She was deciding where to stand. The days after she spoke were quiet, but the quiet felt different now. It was heavier, filled with thoughts and choices instead of fear alone. The woman stayed at the ranch, but she knew things had changed. The truth was out. People knew where she was. They knew why she had left. There would be no hiding behind silence anymore. She felt tired in a deep way, not just in her body but in her heart. Speaking had taken courage she did not know she had. Now that it was done, she felt empty, like the strength had drained out of her all at once. The rancher noticed the change. He did not ask many questions. He had learned that some things needed time to settle. Still, he stayed close, not watching her but making sure she was not alone unless she wanted to be. One morning, as they worked together fixing a broken fence, she finally spoke again. "They will expect me to choose," she said. He tied the rope carefully before answering. "They already do," she nodded. "They will want me to come back or to go somewhere they decide." "And what do you want?" he asked. She stopped working and looked out across the land. The fence stretched far into the distance, simple but strong. She thought about how it had been broken and how they were fixing it piece by piece. "I don't know yet," she said honestly, "but I know I don't want fear to choose for me again." That answer seemed to satisfy him. He smiled faintly and went back to his work. Not long after, word came that there would be a meeting. People from different sides wanted to talk. Not to argue, not to accuse, but to decide what would happen next. The woman felt her stomach tighten when she heard. Standing up once had been hard enough. Doing it again felt almost impossible. Still, she agreed. The meeting was held in a simple open space, not far from town. There were no raised voices, no anger in the air, but tension could be felt in every breath. People watched her as she arrived, some with curiosity, some with judgment, some with quiet respect. She stood beside the rancher, her hands folded tightly in front of her. When it was her turn to speak, she took a deep breath. "I didn't leave to cause harm," she said. "I left because I was afraid of losing myself." Her words were simple. She did not use strong language. She did not blame anyone directly. She spoke about being young, about wanting to understand her own life before giving it to someone else. She spoke about how fear had guided her steps for too long. Some people nodded. Others remained still, their faces unreadable. One elder spoke next. He talked about tradition, about the importance of keeping order and respect. His voice was calm, not angry. He did not deny her feelings, but he did not fully accept them either. The woman listened carefully. When he finished, she spoke again. "I respect where I come from," she said, "but respect should not mean silence." The words surprised even her. The discussion went on for a long time. Nothing was decided quickly, but one thing became clear. No one could force her back into what she had escaped. That path was closed. When the meeting ended, she felt both relief and sadness. She had won something important, but she had also lost something she could never fully explain. That night, she returned to the ranch feeling unsure of her place in the world. She sat outside, watching the sky darken. The stars appeared one by one, quiet and steady. The rancher joined her after a while. "They didn't push you," he said. "No," she replied, "but they didn't pull me back either." He nodded. "Sometimes that's the hardest place to be." She looked at him then, really looked at him. She realized how much his life had changed too. He had been pulled into a situation he never asked for, had stood beside her when it would have been easier to step away. "I don't want to be a burden," she said softly. He shook his head. "You're not." "But I can't stay here forever," she continued. "This is your life. Your land." "That's true," he said, "but staying for a while longer doesn't take anything away from me." She smiled faintly, grateful for his honesty. Over the next few weeks, she began to think more clearly about her future. She helped more around the ranch, not just to be useful, but to learn. She asked questions. She paid attention. She started to imagine a life where she worked, earned, decided. The idea felt strange, almost unreal, but also exciting. One afternoon, a woman from town visited the ranch. She spoke kindly, without judgment. She talked about work opportunities, about small places to live, about learning new skills. She did not push. She only offered information. After she left, the woman sat quietly for a long time. "I think I want to try," she said finally. The rancher looked at her. "Try what?" "To live on my own," she said. "Not alone forever, just on my own terms." He smiled, this time more openly. "That sounds like a good plan." They talked about what that might look like, where she could stay, how she could earn money, what she would need to learn. The conversation was practical, grounded, real. For the first time, her future did not feel like a shadow hanging over her. It felt like something she could shape with her own hands. As the days passed, she felt stronger, not because everything was easy, but because she was choosing to face it. Fear still visited her sometimes, especially at night, but it no longer controlled her steps. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, she stood alone by the fence they had fixed together. She remembered the girl who had run barefoot across the desert, heart pounding, not knowing if she would survive the day. That girl was still part of her. But she was no longer the only part. She turned back toward the ranch, toward the life she was slowly building, knowing that whatever came next, she would meet it standing, not running. The last morning she woke up at the ranch felt different from all the others. The air was calm and the sky was clear, but her chest felt tight. She lay still for a long time, listening to the familiar sounds, the wind moving through dry grass, distant animals, the quiet life she had learned to understand. This place had given her safety when she had none. Now it was time to leave it behind. She stood up slowly and packed the few things she owned. There was not much. Some clothes, a pair of worn shoes, and small items she had gathered during her time here. Each thing carried a memory. Each memory made her pause. Outside, the rancher was already awake. He was repairing something near the barn, moving carefully as if trying not to rush the moment. When he saw her, he straightened and nodded. "Today's the day," he said. "Yes," she replied. Her voice was steady, even though her heart was not. They ate breakfast together, just as they had many times before. The food tasted the same, but the silence between them felt heavier. There was no sadness in it, just the weight of knowing something important was ending. Afterward, he brought out the horse. The animal stood calmly, used to the land and the people around it. She ran her hand along its neck, feeling the warmth beneath her palm. "You're ready," he said, not as a question but as a statement. She nodded. "I think I am." They walked together for a short distance, stopping where the path split. One direction led back to the ranch. The other led toward town, toward a life she would build step by step. She turned to face him. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. He shook his head. "You already did. You chose yourself." That answer stayed with her. She climbed onto the horse. This time she did it on her own. The saddle felt familiar now. The movement felt natural. She took the reins and looked out toward the open land. For a moment she thought about everything she had lost. Her old life, the comfort of belonging, the certainty of knowing where she came from. The pain of that loss was real and she did not try to push it away. But she also thought about what she had gained, her voice. Her choice, her future. She turned back once more. "I won't forget," she said. "I know," he replied. She urged the horse forward. As she rode away, the ranch slowly disappeared behind her. She did not look back again. Not because she was ungrateful, but because she knew she did not need to. What mattered was already inside her. The ride to town took time. The land felt wide but not frightening anymore. Each step the horse took felt like a promise she was making to herself. When she arrived, the town felt busy and loud compared to the quiet ranch. People moved quickly, focused on their own lives. No one stared. No one pointed. She was just another person arriving with hope and uncertainty. She found a small place to stay. It was simple and not very comfortable, but it was hers. That mattered more than anything else. The first days were hard. She had to learn how things worked. She had to ask questions, sometimes more than once. There were moments when fear returned, whispering that she had made a mistake. But each time, she reminded herself why she had left. She found work helping others, doing small tasks that slowly became steady responsibilities. She earned money with her own effort. The feeling was new and powerful. At night, she often sat by the window watching the sky. The stars looked the same as they had at the ranch, steady and patient. She felt comforted by that. Weeks turned into months. Her confidence grew. She learned to speak more clearly, to stand straighter, to trust her own decisions. She made friends, not many, but enough to feel connected. People knew her for who she was now, not for the past she had escaped. One day she returned to the land near the ranch, not to go back, but to ride. She borrowed a horse and moved across the open space at her own pace. The wind brushed against her face and she laughed softly, surprised by the sound. She was no longer running. She was riding forward freely, choosing her direction with every step. As the sun dipped low, she stopped and looked out across the land. The same desert that had once felt like an enemy now felt like an old friend. She took a deep breath. Her life was not perfect. It never would be, but it was hers, and that was enough.